What's up, guys? Today's Tuesday, October 23rd. Be sure and check out the full version of NHL Inside the Lab over at Fantasy Labs. After the preview, stick around for some additional free analysis on today's slate. And as a bonus, going to give you guys one of my favorite player prop bets of the night. But per usual, the full player props bets article can be found at the Action Network. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Toss me a like on this video. Let me know in the comments what you think of today's 8-game slate. Let's jump in. Before we jump into any specifics, Sean, I know you've been keeping a close eye on news. Any news and notes today?
So it appears Alex Radulov is going to be out tonight for Dallas, and apparently Montgomery asked Sagan and Ben who they want to play with, and they said Tyler Pitlick. So it looks like Pitlick might be up to the top line. Looks like Seth Jones is returning today for Columbus, and then it looks like Alex Galchenyuk is going to be returning tonight for Arizona. So we have a decent amount of new things coming in today. There could be more news and notes as the day goes on, but we already have a couple big news and notes right there.
Awesome. We'll keep an eye on our team lines page and our starting goaltenders page. Things are definitely going to be moving throughout the day per usual. So let's move over to the team ratings page, see if we can get kind of a general idea of the slate as a whole. Going to sort by our Corsi 4 expectation and the Chicago Blackhawks against the Anaheim Ducks. Looks like a pretty good spot for Chicago at home. And then we have a couple of road teams in really good Corsi matchups today. Does it stand out for you that we have all these road teams, Sean? Like, do you like Chicago, or are you kind of on some of these other spots?
Yeah, I really like Chicago. Anaheim's banged up. They're missing so many guys right now, and they're giving up just a ton of shots on goal right now. So I think that Chicago makes a lot of sense, especially a guy like Patrick Kane, who's been just fantastic to start the season. Yeah, as you see, the Ducks are giving up so many more shots than most all of the teams in the league right now. So you have a team in Chicago that takes a decent amount of shots as it is and leaves the slate, and then you're playing against a team that is just a massive sieve in shots against right now. So I think Chicago is probably the best spot on the entire slate today. So it definitely makes a lot of sense to attack them. But it's definitely weird to see so many away teams up near the top of the expected Corsi 4 tonight. But that's a good thing as well, because that might give you some additional value that you might not have had if they were the home team.
Yeah, that was what first struck me about the slate, was that there's a lot of really good matchups, but a lot of these teams are on the road. So I do agree with you that the Chicago is in a really good spot. Anaheim top 10 in time shorthanded this year. And then as you said, just this Corsi against of the defense kind of over the past month, far and away outside of Edmonton, the highest on the slate. And then looking at just the offensive side of things, Chicago top 3 in shot attempts over the past month as well. So definitely think it's a really good spot for them at home. If we get sort by our goals for, Boston is on the road against Ottawa, and then we have our Florida Panthers and Pittsburgh Penguins both on the road in really good matchups. You have a lean any way of these road teams that are in good spots.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's firing the puck at will too, so I think that Pittsburgh's a reasonable situation as well against an Edmonton team that gives up quite a few shots, so I think that makes a lot of sense. And then Arizona's interesting. It looks like Galchenyuk's going to be playing on the top line, so it'll be interesting to see how they maintain their shots against. And then Columbus in the same game is getting back Seth Jones, who's obviously one of the better defensemen in the entire league. So you have two sort of big-time variables that are coming into that game that we haven't seen thus far in the season. So it's going to be interesting to see if Arizona continues at the high shot pace, and it'll be interesting to see if Columbus gives up as many shots with Seth Jones back.
Yeah, I feel like Arizona is just going to absolutely bury me this year, because like every time I look at the slate, there's just all these underpriced guys that shoot the puck a lot. Hopefully they start to progress a little bit in the goal scoring column. Like, this is absolutely insane. Just like you sort by Corsi 4, all these teams in the green that shoot the puck, and then there's the Coyotes, 1.57 goals per game. Like, what do you make of that?
Yeah, it's definitely an outlier. It's one of the things we talked about. You expect teams to progress back towards the mean. Obviously, they might not be as elite shooters as some of these other teams, but generally the Corsi 4 is a good indication of what teams are going to score and what teams aren't going to score. You see that most of the teams that have a high Corsi 4 score quite a few goals, and vice versa. If the team has a low Corsi 4, they don't score very many goals. So it's one of those things. You see them up near the top every single slate. So you're expecting it to reverse towards the mean. But hockey is such a event-based sport and so highly variable due to it just being 1 or 2 goals scored a game. And one deflection going the wrong way could be the difference between a goal or not a goal. So it's definitely a hockey issue, but I think Arizona's going to have to revert a little bit towards the mean at some point. So I think that Arizona's going to start scoring. It's just a matter of when. but they're still so underpriced and they shoot so many shots. It's just such a great spot almost every slate.
I agree with you, man. It's just it's tough enough being a Cardinals fan. I just got to watch my Coyotes get 40 shots a game and score one goal. It's just tough sledding. But yeah, outside of that, it looks like a bunch of teams on the road in good spots. Let's move over to the Vegas page. And it looks like we have Boston at the top against the Ottawa Senators. And yes, I mean, these road teams, we talked about Pittsburgh quickly. Also, Florida in a really good spot against the Rangers at the top. But it is relatively flat. We do have Chicago just outside that top tier. So they have a really good matchup as far as Corsi, and they might draw a little bit less ownership than some of these teams at the top. But team ratings, per usual, gave us some pretty decent spots. Let's see where my Yotes are. And they're quite a bit of the ways down. Oh, they're actually the last kind of implied total on the slate. So, yeah, interesting. I guess that makes sense, though. What do you make of the Vegas page here?
Yeah, I mean, so much of Vegas page and just in general is based on what teams are scoring on the season. It's not based on the Corsi 4, which is why I think if you were to bet on the Arizona over on their implied total almost every day, you'd probably end up profitable over the long run over the next month or two. But once they start scoring, it'll change that a little bit. But the thing is, with them taking so many shots, they're going to eventually start scoring more than 1.57 goals per game. It's just going to happen. It's not possible for them to stay where they are. So I think that you see them as such a drastic underdog because they haven't been putting the puck actually in the net thus far. That you see them almost every slate as the biggest underdog on the slate, which isn't necessarily an exact replica of what they are.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to just keep beating this to death, but they're so underpriced relative to their shots that it's still a somewhat decent situation for fantasy that we'll got to at least pay attention to. So we'll see what things are like over in the models. All right, be sure and check out that full video over on Fantasy Labs. Just wanted to talk through the slate a little bit more with you guys, starting with the Chicago Blackhawks. Patrick Kane, guys, he's probably the best play on the slate, even at 7,200. He's a guy that his peripheral stats, his shots, have just been off the charts lately. 99th percentile in shot attempts, 99th in power play shots and shots plus blocks. Just this guy at 7,200 has just been smashing value. This Chicago team in a really good spot today. There's always going to be a ton of upside with Patrick Kane, regardless of him not blocking a lot of shots. Not really something to worry about at the winger position. So I think starting your cash lineups with Patrick Kane today makes a ton of sense. And then Duncan Keith at 5,200 at the defense position, definitely one of the top options in that side of things. Another guy that has been shooting the puck a lot, and the majority of his usage has been coming on the power play. 96th percentile there, also 96th percentile in Corsi over the past month. So even though he hasn't gotten a ton of shots through in some of these games, he's been making up for it with his blocks. So definitely like Duncan Keith today at 5,200. I think kind of stacking up Patrick Kane and Keith makes a lot of sense in tournaments. As far as the rest of that line, it's tough to go up to Kahn because he's not on that power play unit. DeBrincat, 6,300, probably a little bit overpriced. But I do like Jonathan Toews on that line. The problem with playing Toews is that you don't get access to Patrick Kane on this first power play unit because he is on the second unit. So it's a little bit tougher. I do think Toews is in a really good spot at the center position. He is one of my favorite options at 6,100, 95th percentile in Corsi. But one of the guys I really want to talk about at the center position that for some reason I have a feeling might go a little bit under-owned. Sidney Crosby, guys. When was the last time we saw Sidney Crosby at 6,700? So you can make an argument. I mean, he hasn't been scoring goals. His shots are way down. He's not blocking a ton of shots. But here's the thing, guys. One of the most predictive stats at center is Corsi, and he's in the 97th percentile, second on the entire slate. At 6,700, definitely want to be early on Crosby turning things around. It could be tonight against Edmonton, a team that's been very poor defensively. And at some point, you think Crosby's probably going to get sick of all these people talking about Connor McDavid, talking about Austin Matthews, all these young guys. Crosby's still one of the best players in the league, guys, and I think that this could be a prove-it game for him. At 6,700, I think he's a really fantastic value. At the center position outside of Crosby, you can always make a case for Tyler Seguin or Patrice Bergeron, both in the 99th percentile in shots plus blocks. But tougher matchup for both of those guys, specifically targeting some of these other guys. Bergeron against Ottawa, definitely in play. He's one of the top guys in my model. Seguin, he's pretty expensive at 7,600. I think if you have to choose between Seguin and Kane, it's still probably going to be Seguin for me. I'm looking to save as my second center option today, and a great way to do that is the way we've been doing it for a while now with Derek Stepan at 4,900. He's a guy that is in the 99th percentile in shots plus blocks, 97th in Corsi. You mentioned how important Corsi is. So he's seen his time on ice go down a little bit recently. He actually has only had one shot in each of the last 2 games, but he's still blocking some shots. You definitely have the upside of this Coyotes team that shoots a lot. At some point, they're going to start going in. It's just crazy to see that this team has been shooting so much and not scoring goals. Definitely want to be early on that regression as well. That's pretty much going to do it for the center position for me. At winger, I mentioned Patrick Kane. You can always make an argument for Evander Kane for the San Jose Sharks. You get access to the second power play unit with him. So that means Erik Karlsson. Definitely like Kane at 6,400. I think he's still in a pretty decent salary range for his peripherals. Look at those shots. So 99th percentile in shots, 94th percentile in shots on the power play. So definitely like his usage quite a bit. On the value side of things, I think it makes sense to go back to Boone Jenner. He is being used on the first power play, and this was kind of an issue with him. He's always kind of a high volume shooter. I think it's a really good price for him at 4,900. And then the other value option that I think is going to be really popular is Tyler Pitlick on the first the first line for the Stars with Sagan and Ben at just 2,900. Really tough to get away from that value. He's not necessarily a high volume shooter, but if he's given an opportunity, I definitely think he can hit value at 2,900. That's kind of what I'm dialed into on the value side of things. At defense, so the guy you want to pay up for is going to be Chris Letang. This is a great way to stack up Crosby 6,700. Letang also 6,700. I think playing him makes a ton of sense. He's the top defenseman as far as Corsi, shots plus blocks, shot attempts. Letang's just been shooting the puck a ton. These defensemen are just kind of underpriced in general, in my opinion. So, I mean, look at this kind of floor that you get. He's been on just a tear lately. So definitely think Letang is one of the best plays on the entire slate. Roman Josi, another guy we look at, 5,500 is a decent price, but it's not a very good matchup against San Jose on the other side of that game. Definitely prefer some of these other options that we've talked about. Kind of locked into Letang right now. At the cheaper end, I think you can go down to Duncan Keith, but that pretty much does it for me, guys. Let's jump over to props. All right, per usual, check out the full props article over at the Action Network to get an idea of which lines I'm actually attacking on which books. Definitely want to be long on John Gibson, though. I talked a lot about Chicago and how much I like them in this matchup. I definitely think it's a spot where John Gibson could load up a ton of saves, a ton of shots from the Chicago team. Chicago is the fourth most shots for in the entire league, and Anaheim has given up the most shots to start the season. So definitely think it's a really good spot to get on Gibson. He's our highest save prediction on the entire slate at 37.6 saves. So well over most of the lines out there for John Gibson. Blackhawks also have the highest Corsi 4 expectations. So it's just a really strong play, I think, on the over with Gibson tonight. I'm definitely going to be on that, but there's a lot of other really good value props, so definitely check out the article. That's it for today, guys. If you like my work and you want to support my work, be sure and check out Fantasy Labs and the Action Network. If you want to take that a step further, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Give this video a like and let me know in the comments what you think about today's slate. Last thing, give me a follow over on Twitch. If you haven't checked out any of those live streams yet, I'll be doing more and more of those throughout the week. All the details are in the description below. All right, good talk, guys. See you out there.